if you asked me to describe the way we train with 7 fundamentals. Okay. I'm going to go real fast. You guys can record this and play it back, whatever. Number 1 is neck. Neck is the most important part of your body to train for football. Argue with me if you want to, you're wrong if you say it's not. Okay. Number 2, core mobility and stability. We do a loaded overhead squat as a test for where we have mobility issues. An overhead squat with 95 pounds on the bar will tell you if you have ankle issue, knee issue, hip issue, lumbar spine, thoracic spine, cervical spine, shoulder, elbow, wrist. Every joint system in the body is going to be taxed from a mobility perspective on an overhead squat. Find the weaknesses, fix them. That's number 2. Number 3 is loaded hinge triple extension. Mostly a power clean, but it can be any kind of triple extension, any kind of hinge. Your power clean, we catch them deep to take the hip flexors out of the pelvic stability component. So your anterior core has to do the job of stabilizing the pelvic and the lumbar spine, which is also just like impact on a football field. But the other part of it is top speed mechanics. When you pull a bar off the ground and it reaches that knee and your legs are almost perfectly straight, but not quite, they're straight, but not locked out. Your hamstring and glute are firing in the same sequence as when you're running at top end speed. Isometric hamstring contraction, concentric glute contraction. You can't run with both feet at the same time. It'd be like a sack race, right? But that's the same. If you could run 2 legs at the same time, it's the exact same firing sequence as when you're sprinting at top speed. So that's loaded hinge, triple extension. Number 4 is squat. Okay. We squat deep and we squat heavy. Do I care that guys go to parallel? No. Why? Because you don't play football in a parallel squat. Now we are going to front squat. We catch our cleans deep. We do kettlebell goblet squat. We're going to squat deep at certain times in certain ways, but with a back squat, a barbell on our back, I could give a shit less whether a guy squats to full depth. I'm sorry. Can you say shit on the radio? My bad.
Why not?
We've said much worse on here.
It's 2022. Yeah, we'll let it happen.
Favor, just put a bleep there.
I don't know how to bleep. I haven't got to that level of it yet.
Now we have a reason. We need to bleep.
Yeah, bleep. Come on, man, help me out. Like kids are going to listen to this. Okay, so I'm sorry. It'll be fun. People enjoy it. I bleep myself all the time when I make videos. Okay. So number 4, squat. Now, the first 3 movements, neck, loaded hinge, triple extension, and core mobility and stability, they're football specific. You can draw a straight line from that training, that specific training modality. Excuse me, you can't breathe, Crystal Light. You could draw a straight line from that to the football field to a football specific movement. Now, once you get past that football specificity, the furthest we go is once removed. A back squat, not football specific. If you do that movement on a football field, you're getting put on your backside. That's not a good thing. But training our groin, our pelvic stability, our core stability, all that stuff, it's all the things that you need to run, jump, sprint, tackle, all that stuff. Okay. All right. So, but that's strength. Now, all you triphasic people out here, don't get mad at me. I've completely ruined triphasic training for everybody who loves it. Okay. Triphasic training to me is strength, rate of force development, and practical application. Okay. We use the triphasic band assisted jumps to work on rate of force development. So strength is how much force can you produce? Rate of force development is how fast can you produce that force? And then once you can create a bunch of force really, really fast, how do you practically apply that to your sport? Well, for us, it's box jumps, it's bounding, it's running, it's whatever, striking a sled. All right. Pretty easy to figure out how lower body stuff turns into football specific stuff. So number 4 is squat. Number 5 is eccentric hamstring strength. 90% of the athletes we get out of high school have weak hip flexors, weak groin, and weak eccentric hamstring strength, or weak hamstring strength in general. We just talked about the firing sequence between the glute and the hamstring. All right. Your glute is stronger than your hamstring, period. Statement of fact. Your glute is not stronger concentrically than your hamstring can be isometrically or eccentrically. So when you sprint, all the force that you create with your glute has to transfer through your hamstring into your foot, or I say the heel because you're pulling back. All right. Your hamstring makes your leg a solid rod from your hip socket to your heel, right? It's a straight line and it makes it solid. It's like trying to row a canoe with an oar that's got a joint in the middle that's loose. You can't you can't do anything with it, right? That hamstring turns that oar into one rigid thing so that you can row the canoe. Y'all with me? Is that a good analogy, people?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna make that oar for you so you can use it in a demonstration.
That would be awesome. But you gotta row from above the joint. So it's like, okay. And so people think that you run with your hamstrings. That's why you pull your hamstring. Well, the truth is you sprint forward with your glutes, and your hamstrings have to transfer that force into the ground. So your hamstrings have to be able to produce more force isometrically at that angle than your glutes can produce concentrically. Google isometric, eccentric, and concentric force production if you're having a hard time understanding this conversation, because we don't have time to talk about that right now. Okay. So that's what we're doing. So as soon as your hamstrings fatigue to the point where they can no longer outmatch your concentric glute contraction, you pull a hamstring. Okay. Strong hamstrings don't pull. Flexible hamstrings don't tear. But if you have strong enough hamstrings that never pull, your hamstring's going to pull before it tears. So my hamstrings never pull, they never tear. Are we all on the same page? Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's an exception to this rule somewhere. So y'all can find the one you PubMed article that disproves me and tweet about it, and we'll laugh about it behind your back. All right. So that's the number 5 is eccentric hamstring strength. Number 6 is press. Okay, which bench press, any press, but we use bench press as an example. If you go on the football field and strike somebody like a bench press, your position coach is going to like do the Macho Man Randy Savage razor's edge to you and like completely destroy your soul. Like that's not a thing. Okay, so why do we bench press? Well, because it's a general strengthening exercise for all of the muscles you need to strike with your upper body, right? So we strengthen those muscles, then we do rate of force development. We do it's similar to a triphasic jump where you hook the bands on your arms and you use it to jump. Well, now we hook the band underneath our sternum on the triphasic bars at the top of the rack, and we do explosive push-ups, right? It's like a plyometric push-up at less than body weight so that you can move faster. Okay. Then practical applications, usually some kind of punch pad. My man Schlegel with his difference pads. I'm gonna throw a promo out for Schlegel. Punch pads, or you can throw a punch pad on the wall, anything that's going to be striking and have that impact, right? So that we can practically apply force into our opponent. Okay. And that's where you get football specific. You have defensive linemen strike and peak. You got the cornerbacks jamming. You got offensive linemen. We usually use a med ball because offensive linemen have double unders, elbows tight. If you strike a pad like that, you're going to break your wrist. We try to make it match what their indie looks like when they're striking. Okay. So that's number 6. We said 7 fundamentals. So the 7th one will be pull, okay, which would be pull-ups, rows, any kind of, bigger back makes a bigger press, it all goes together. Mm-hmm. But we do pull-ups as our primary example, hanging all the way through your armpits so that you're stretching the pec, the shoulder, the biceps tendon and the bicep under load, because at some point you're going to have to go make a tackle or strike somebody. You're going to get pulled, wide receiver, go up for a ball, get yanked back. You got to strain through that full range of motion. We do pause pull-ups at the bottom and the top. We do weighted pull-ups with a pause at the bottom and the top. All these things to stretch that tissue at its longest point. And then once guys can handle the load and the strain on their shoulders with it all the way straight out, then we go into working on muscle ups. I've only had one team where we even started to do that. It's taken me several years to get at any program to get guys strong enough, because we don't do we don't do CrossFit and gymnastics and stuff. So, but just getting them where they can handle that kind of force through their shoulders and armpits so that they can work on doing an explosive pull-up. But we do explosive Trx rows where we explode up, we catch in the top position where we get that ballistic eccentric impact on the posterior shoulder for all the guys that, specifically the quarterbacks, but all the positions that need to work on if you're working on explosive pulls, or presses, you got to be working on explosive pulls. So those are our 7 fundamentals. And that's what's changed from the beginning of my career to now, is instead of doing workouts, we have a philosophy, just like a practice has warm up and indie and half line pass and goal line and 7-on-7 run, 5-on-4 pass rush, low red zone, high red. They have all these pieces and they all go together in every single practice. We did the same thing in the weight room. These are the fundamentals that we know make better football players. The one that we don't actually add into the fundamentals would be groin. I don't load the groin the same way, which is why it's not one of the fundamentals. We use it as a prep for all of our squatting, all of our sprinting, all this stuff. We're always doing isometric groin prep. I found a few ways to do concentric groin movement. If anybody has a great concentric groin exercise that's not the thing you see at Planet Fitness, I'm always looking for a good concentric groin movement to where we can actually build some mass for guys that are super underdeveloped. But mostly your groin is going to be an isometric and an eccentric mover when you're training and sprinting and playing. So, but some guys, there's just not very many isometric movements that work really well. So